Hello, check, sound check. I am on. It says, it looks like the sound is working. I can't tell if I have anybody in here yet. I see a couple of likes, but I don't think anybody is here at the moment. Sorry to be late, as the usual, right? That is just me, I guess. I try for it to not be. But I guess the only way to not be late is to be early. And I feel like I can't really do that because if I tell you guys I'm coming on at a certain time and then you're on time, but I started early, so I made you late, then I'm going to feel really bad. You just can't win. It's hard to be super precise and be like on the minute. It happens. It's good to have goals. That's my goal. So, how is you? I see I do have one in the house and 3 likes, so that's exciting. If you can say hi and feel like it, then I'll know for sure that everything is working well. How's my lighting? How's my hair? How's my jewelry? Most importantly, how's my jewelry? So let's just get rolling. I don't like to yabber at the beginning and waste my time and yours. Please hit your like button. Everything I say is simply my opinion. Ninja, hello, darling. 4:30 a.m. You rock. You rock. So nice to see you. Thank you for saying hi. So all of what I say is simply my opinion for the sake of conversation, hoping to open up a discussion and learn something and be educational and shock you. All my videos are made for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. Please make sure you're still subscribed. If you are subscribed, I am going to shock you in a second, Ninja. Maybe if you're shockable. Make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed, and if you're not, consider doing so. It's a wonderful way to help out a content creator. Share a video of mine with somebody that you think might like it. Turn on your notification bell to ring. And Ninja, I know that you have been hyper focused on Madeline Soto's case, right? I don't know if there's any other cases that you're hyper focused on at the moment. Of course, you've been hyper focused on Kylie Rodney in the past. That's kind of where you started, like me. And so we're always going back to that, aren't we? But I think what I'm trying to get to is just how we have the common denominator of wanting to fight violence against women and wanting to fight for justice, especially when it's against these young girls. My God, children are so vulnerable, women are so vulnerable, and female kids, it's just awful. It's so sad. And I hope that doesn't make me lose my stream. Cassie Ventura is in the middle of her testimony in the Diddy trial in New York. I've been shocked a lot lately from the Trumpster fire, as I call him, covering the 2 Sullivan children also now. Oh, good. I've seen a little bit about that. I am so hyper focused on the Trumpster fire that, I think there's so much true crime going on in his orbit that it's insane, because he is one of the very most powerful people in the world right now. And he's such a rat bastard, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. I mean, even his wife won't talk to him. Even his daughter won't talk to him. He's a nightmare. He's an absolute nightmare. Everybody who works for him will either go to prison or just be thrown under the bus. Every single person. I think the only person in his first administration that didn't get thrown under the bus or go to prison was his daughter's husband, Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner. But man, all of these multi-billion-dollar deals are absolutely disgusting, absolutely insane. But I think that this is what I was going to say that might shock you, Ninja. I think that one of the reasons that he's in the Middle East right now and he's doing all of these shocking deals and everything else that he can do to make noise and to make news to I think he's been shitting bricks since Virginia Giuffre's passing away in your country there, right? I think that that brings the whole Epstein thing front and center, and he's so effing central to the little E files. He's actually probably very central in the Sean Combs files. That's what I'm getting at. Is he was probably already having a heart attack over the Giuffre thing, and now he's probably like being medically monitored so that he doesn't have a heart attack. Maybe that's why he fell asleep yesterday during the meeting that they were having. You know, the big production right in front of everybody. After all those years of making fun of Sleepy Joe, we can now call him Sleepy Doe. I just made that up on the spot. Okay. I'm going to be a little manic. Watching MeidasTouch every day at the moment. We're worried here in Australia too. Yeah, I've been watching MeidasTouch more too. I kind of steered away from them for a while. You know, the impeachment trials are starting. I want to say last night that that the Congress began the review of the call for impeachment that had just been made a day or two before by an immigrant lawmaker from what state was he? Dang it, I almost had it. Immigrant lawmaker from Annabees. Who's the congressman who made the impeachment request? What state is he from? It's driving me crazy now. Not that it matters that much. The congressman who filed for impeachment. He said he moved to this country with $20 in his pocket. And if he's a congressman, he's making $175,000 a year now. Shri Thandar, Michigan, right? That sounds right. Shri, SHRI. So this is what AI has to say about it. Several congressmen have filed articles of impeachment against President Donnie. Specifically, Congressman Shri Thandar, Michigan 13, introduced articles of impeachment along with other representatives like, I can't say this name, MFUME. Is that like MFU me? That's a good one, huh? Nadler and Kelly of Illinois. Additionally, Congressman Al Green announced his intention to file articles of impeachment. Representative Ogles also filed articles of impeachment against a judge. So, yeah. Oh, so it's been updated just in the last hour. Democrats to reject Trump impeachment effort led by Michigan congressman. Oh, you rat bastard Democrats. Oh, man. Funny, not funny. So let me drink a little veggie juice. Nice to see you, Annabees. What's up with Texas? Oh, were you just taking a stab at what country the congressman was from? So I think it's Michigan, according to artificial intelligence, but they're not always right. But it's like MI 13. So is that like the 13th representative of Michigan? Yeah, that's what it says. A Democrat representing Michigan's 13th congressional district filed articles of impeachment against Trump, but that was in April. But now, 2 hours ago, they're saying that the Democrats are going to reject it. That's crazy. I mean, I'll learn more about it later, but why? Should I just read a little bit? Like, why would they be ready to reject it? That's ridiculous. Unless they're just waiting for him to commit more crimes, more articles of impeachment, because I think each day he is, as soon as he accepts that jumbo jet, which I think he's probably doing as I speak, there's another huge article of impeachment. So maybe they are trying to stave off the beginning of the process until that can be full-fledged in it, because that is such a crime by definition. Let's see. A Democrat lawmaker is launching a renegade effort to impeach Donnie, pushing past party leaders on Wednesday with an attempt to force a procedural vote in the U.S. House that is expected to fail. And this is from today, May 14th. And yeah, I definitely would expect it to fail, but not from the Dems. He announced his intention to charge ahead, saying that as an immigrant, he wants to do all he can to protect America's Constitution and its institutions. You would think those of us native to this nation would as well, huh? But yeah, sometimes it's the converts who are the most devout and loyal and strongest. His resolution, criticized by fellow Democrats, contains several articles of impeachment against the Republican president. Donnie has been committing crimes since day one: bribery, corruption, taking power from Congress, creating an unlawful office in Doge, violating First Amendment rights, ignoring due process, the congressman said earlier from the House floor. Not to mention, if the election was illegitimate, and also not to mention if the alleged assassination attempt last July, if that was not legit either, which I really don't think it was. I've been studying more about automatic, semi-automatic weapons and their ammunition and the behavior of the ammunition on contact. It blows things up. It basically like dissolves, like crumbles. Trigger warning. It crumbles what it gets near. So like his ear getting like scathed, not going to happen. That's not the way those bullets react or behave. And there were only 8 fired. Everything that they touched would have been shredded, and probably a lot more than 8 would have been fired. I mean, you can fire a lot more than that in a split second, I'm pretty sure, from what I've read. I mean, I've never touched one, obviously. It would be the historic third time Trump has faced impeachment efforts after being twice impeached during his first term as president. First in 2019 on charges related to withholding military aid to Ukraine as it confronted Russia. And later on a charge of inciting insurrection over the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol by a mob of his supporters. Trump was acquitted both times by the Senate, and I know the second time in particular, it was Mitch McConnell that saved his hiney. Another rat bastard who's been doing more reputable things of late, but still, like, if he wouldn't have saved his hiney, then this guy wouldn't be president right now. So screw you, Mitch McConnell. Sorry, not sorry. Thanadir, if I'm saying his name right, is not the only Democrat who has signaled impeachment efforts against Trump, but his decision to go it almost alone without backing from party leadership comes as he faces his own political challenges at home, with several primary opponents looking to unseat him in his Detroit area congressional district. Representative Pete Aguilar of California, chair of the House Democratic Caucus, said Democratic leadership would vote to sideline any effort to bring Thandier's impeachment articles to a full vote, calling impeachment not the right approach we should be taking. I don't know. I think that he might just be being a weasel. Right now, our focus is on health care being stripped away from the American people, Aguilar said. Well, I don't think that you're going to be able to prevent that. I mean, not to be hopeless, but I think that's happening. That is the most urgent and dire thing that we could be talking about this week. Aguilar added that Trump is no stranger to impeachment, but said that Thandier's proposal is not ripe and not timely, given the negotiations over Republicans' budget reconciliation package. Democrats who streamed out of their weekly caucus meeting were critical of the impeachment effort. They said the focus should not be on impeachment, but on Republican efforts to cut spending on important programs that Americans rely on, such as Medicaid and nutrition assistance. I mean, I disagree. I think that I think he's the biggest monster of them all, in my opinion. There's no support for an impeachment resolution. There has been no hearings on compiling a record for which impeachment can be based, and this is just a procedure that's meaningless at this point. Well, yeah, if you say it is, then you're going to make it so, said Representative Hank Johnson, Democrat from Georgia. The sponsor is out of sync with the mood and the trajectory of House Democrats. I think these people are just fearful for their safety and the safety of their families, because it's not just Donnie that would be wanting to retaliate. It would be people over there in the Arab nations as well, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. The work that we need to focus on is that Republicans are stripping away access to health care, stripping away nutritional assistance for hungry kids. They've already done that. And giving tax breaks to the wealthiest Americans and large corporations. That's all they ever do, said Rick Larson, Democrat from Washington. This resolution has nothing to do with that. Timing is also key. Thandier's resolution claiming Trump committed high crimes and misdemeanors comes as Trump is traveling in the Middle East in his first major trip abroad of a second term, violating a norm in American politics of not criticizing the president once he leaves the U.S. water's edge. Violating a norm in American politics of not criticizing the president once he leaves the U.S. water's edge. And you got to remember that that leader it's been determined by American intelligence that he is the one who called for the red rum of Jamal Khashoggi. The guy that Trump was just practically given a wet, juicy kiss to yesterday in front of everybody. Let's see. Where was I? But Thandier said he was pressing ahead in part because of Trump's trip abroad and the potential conflict of interest, as the president appears to be mixing his personal business dealings with his presidential duties, and is considering accepting a lavish gift of an airplane from the Qatari government. My constituents want me to act, Thandier told the Associated Press Tuesday. It's time for us to stand up and speak. I totally am in with him. We can't worry about, is this the right time? We can't worry about, are we going to win this battle? It's more about doing the right thing, he said. I took an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. So did Mr. Trump. He has violated his oath and he's doing unconstitutional activities. It's time for someone to stand up and say that. And if that's just me, then so be it. I like this guy. That I totally agree. Let's see how much more there is if I should continue. Yeah, I'm almost done. Let me see. Where was I? Yeah, very close to being done. Thandier, again, I'm sorry if I'm misenunciating, is using a procedural tool to force a vote Wednesday on whether to proceed to the issue or shelve the matter. So that would be today. Today's Wednesday. one top Trump ally, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, man, is she a wingnut and a half, criticized Thayer and dismissed the impeachment effort. It's DOA, she posted on social media. Impeachment of a president or other U.S. official, once rare, has become an increasingly common in Congress. They made a typo there. That's all right. Republicans in the House opened an impeachment inquiry into then President Joe Biden, a Democrat, but stopped short of action. The Republicans in Congress did, however, impeach Biden's Homeland Security Secretary, Alexandria Mayorkas. The Senate dismissed 2 articles of impeachment against Mayorkas, ending his trial. Thayer, who's from India, has said he came to the United States without many resources. He says he loves the U.S. and wants to defend its Constitution and institutions. When he took over the Detroit Congressional District, it was the first time in decades the city was left without a black lawmaker in Congress. That's interesting. So, what say you? I still haven't drank my veggie juice. I've been holding it all that time. But yeah, Midas Touch has been really good keeping up with it. I also have been really liking Rebel HQ, Occupy Democrats. Those 2 I've been loving a lot. A couple other of the top ones. I've been watching Bulwark a lot. That's kind of my go-to, I think. And looking at my phone because it'll tell me what I'm looking up the most. Chris Norland, he's really good. If you haven't checked him out yet, Ninja, you might like that one. And then Christopher Titus, man, I love him. And Hal Sparks. Election Truth Alliance. And then some AJR to, burn down the house and decrease the stress level. But yeah, Boston Bryan's really good too. And yeah, Christopher Titus, Bulwark, and Chris Norland and House Sparks, and Election Truth Alliance. So the Election Truth Alliance is a new channel that is created by the group of statisticians who are, in my opinion, completely proving that the election was hacked. So from their research and their analysis, they demonstrate in their videos just how it was hacked. And it's kind of hard to follow because it's statistics, not my cup of tea. But I mean, I like statistics. I'm just not good at it. And so it's very scientific, and that's good though, because you got to be when you're doing this stuff. And that's how they got away with hijacking the election, in my opinion, is that it's so hard to go over with a fine-tooth comb the thousands upon thousands of precincts all across the country, because you have to do it precinct by precinct. And they're on it. I don't think they're going to stop. I don't know if they'll be able to affect a change, but just like the Democrat from Michigan said, you got to do the right thing. And if you have the capacity to do it, if you have the wherewithal, if you have the ability, then why wouldn't you? I mean, I think that would be irresponsible not to. If you know how and you think it needs to be done, then just do it. You know, the good old Nike slogan. Okay, let's see. But must have not been first. Oh, okay, yeah, he did file it. Let's see, let me get caught up. And yeah, those 2 Sullivan children, it's so sad. And Jez, Ninja, everyone. Also, what's that other one? Legal AF is also good. So I thought Al Green filed, and every time I look at that, I think AI. I thought AI filed, but must have not been first. I never thought the assassination attempt was real. No, it was so choreographed. I mean, I've watched it in slow motion a bunch of times, he literally is trying to get people's attention to look at a prop that he had, a big like graph of how awful things were with Biden, basically, and how great they were with him, I'm sure. He literally is like, look over there. And as soon as he gets everybody's attention to look over there, is when it happens. And just the way he like swats his ear like there's a mosquito bothering it. And then I won't break it down because I've got too much other stuff I want to talk about right now. But yeah, the whole thing is just ludicrous in my opinion. And it's such a sensitive subject to say somebody faked something like that is blasphemous in the possibility that maybe they didn't fake it. That's a horrible thing to accuse somebody of. And I was kind of waiting for other people to call it out and news channels to call it out. And I couldn't believe how many just went with the status quo. Like pretty much everyone. There's only been a couple of channels that I've seen call it out, but more lately, like all the channels that I've just mentioned, Midas Touch is one of those. They've all been calling it out lately. And that's very criminal to fake an assassination attempt. It's also very criminal for all these news channels, if there's indications that it was fake, for them to go along with it. And I think that that's why they're going to that's their story and they're sticking to it. They're not all going to go down, I mean, that's the problem with conspiracies. It's like they can't. They got to stick to their story. They can't ever admit that they were being corrupt. They can never admit it. All they can admit to is the incompetence. They can always pull the buffoon card and say, oh, well, we thought it was real. We thought it was. Anyway, where was I? But yeah, I'm glad I'm not alone in that, because I have felt alone, the first few weeks, especially when I was waiting for other people to call it out. And it took so long. Before, like, I saw the first video of somebody calling it out. And that was a good one. I'll put it in the description. I forget the name of the channel right now, but it's a really good video. Aguilar is an idiot. I disagree. Also, Annabee says, and his homemade gazpacho are roaming the streets. Annabee, you're so clever. So it is scary, but they are supposed to protect us. So for anybody who doesn't know what you're talking about with your Gestapo, and I read it as gazpacho because ever since Marjorie Taylor Greene accused Nancy Pelosi of having the gazpacho police, I just can barely not call it that. So the Gestapo police roaming in the streets, it's so scary, but they are supposed to protect us. Yeah. So I started trying to watch. I don't think I can do it. The Handmaid's Tale television series. I went to season 1, episode 1, and I've watched most of it. I don't know if I can get through it. It is just gag worthy. I mean, it's well done. It's suspenseful. It's good acting. It's good cinematography and good writing and good editing and all of that. But it's so gut-wrenching, the storyline. And what you said there about the Gestapo reminds me of how the handmaids have to go to the grocery store. Anywhere they go, they have to go in pairs, and they're basically each other's spy to keep an eye on each other so that they don't try to escape. And it's just insane. I mean, the government is supposed to protect us. Yeah. And so is the gazpacho soup. They're supposed to protect us also. I mean, yeah. Yes, no one called it out. Thank goodness. Like I said, a bunch, pretty much all of the ones I mentioned, I think they've all called it out now. And I didn't mention things like Brian Taylor Cohen. Is that his name? Adam Mockler, Luke Beasley, Jack Cochicello, if I'm saying his name right. I never think I am. And Pac-Man, David Pac-Man. So those are all these young men that have really big political channels, with like basically 1 million subs. And they're just really good at being very down to earth in their explanations. Adam Mockler, Luke Beasley, and Jack Cochicelli, they're all like in their early 20s, and 1 or 2 or 3 of them are in college still. Like one of them like does it from his dorm room. I think that's Jack. And he was the one who was expelled from Dartmouth for allegations of harassment that I haven't really looked into, but I'm just not so inclined to believe that that's anything but a smear campaign from political opponents, basically. Okay, so let me look at my notes. I have a bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about today. Let me see if I can decipher it. I haven't mentioned Donnie's right eye has been really droopy the last few weeks. It's usually at about half mast. So his left eye looks normal. His right eye looks half closed to me. And I have mentioned how we only see him sitting down or standing up. We don't see him transitioning from sitting to standing or standing to sitting. However, we saw both yesterday, and he did very poorly with both. When he stood up, it looked to me like he almost was going to lose his balance, but he got it. He got his rudder going, and he didn't fall down. I don't think anybody had to grab him. But then when he was sitting down, a nice woman came to assist him, and then she started to walk away, and then she had second thoughts, and she got back to assisting him until he was safely seated. And I thought that was very telling, that I think the people around him are noticing, and they're not wanting to make him look so feeble. They're not wanting to, they probably did both of those very intentionally to prove to everyone that he could transition from standing to sitting and sitting to standing on his own. But also when he was walking, something's wrong with his gait. I think it's his right leg is like kind of juts out like a ski. And I think I've heard other people mention that over time, and I've never really noticed it, but I got a screenshot of it, and maybe I'll put it in a community post and ask you guys what you think, because something really looks wrong with his right leg. I mean, I've heard people speculate that he might even have diabetes and have lost toes, or, more than just toes. And that would also account for problems with balance and problems transitioning from standing to sitting and sitting to standing. And with a diet like he has, it wouldn't be surprising in the least. But why not just be upfront about it and, just cop to it, whatever it is. There's medical diagnoses that were not identified in his clean, quote unquote, clean bill of health that were kind of alluded to. And I heard a medical doctor breaking it down. It was probably things like high blood pressure, that there were, like I said, things that alluded to that, but it wasn't diagnosed in the quote unquote clean bill of health. But we know that his soul is healthy. The doctor said he had a very healthy soul, according to him. It's insane. I mean, can people just admit that he's effing crazy? It could be, Anna B says. So, yeah. The droopy right eye, the trouble sitting and standing. For anybody who didn't catch it, I'm sure most everyone did. The Saudis got him a mobile McDonald's that they brought on site, which was a very kind gesture, maybe. Or my first thought is that they're mocking him, like, to his face. A freaking mobile Mickey D's. I didn't even know those existed. But how weird is that? I mean, yeah, it's a nice gesture if you know that this is somebody's favorite food to do that, but ridiculous. So over the top. Like, just get a bunch of the food. You don't need to get a whole mobile unit of a restaurant. I mean, it was a whole restaurant. I don't know. Maybe they're hoping that he does himself in. So, also, he apparently has been using Ozempic, I think is how you say it. And he's been losing a lot of weight lately. So it's obvious to the naked eye that he's been losing a lot of weight. And the word on the street is that people on the inside track at Mar-a-Lago are saying that it's Ozempic, that's what he's using. But it was so weird the way he used that as a story that he was telling about his fat friend. I kind of wondered if he was talking about himself. He was talking about his fat friend that called him up and called him president and said, you know, I'm over here in Europe and the Ozempic's only $80. Why is it over 1,000 in the US? And it was just this weird story. And he kept calling his friend fat, like that word. It was bizarre. He's a very bizarre man. He's a very bizarre man. And the fact that he's wormed himself into the position that he's in is just surreal. And yeah, if anybody was looking at my finger, I have it bandaged up still, much smaller bandage today than yesterday. I think it's doing well. We'll see how it heals. I don't think I'm going to have to be a lizard and grow the tip of it back. So I'm happy about that. But I'm just trying to keep it really clean and really dry. Bizarre to say the least. Yeah. So, while he's over there meeting with bazillionaires, hoping to get a handout, not for our country, but just for Donnie boy. His country is literally burning down, flooding. Cassie Ventura is testifying in a takedown of the century against Sean Combs. And the Kim Kardashian trial just started yesterday for when she was like held hostage and robbed at gunpoint a year or two ago. Started yesterday. I can't help but think that seems so choreographed as a favor to try to draw attention away from the Diddy trial. Like, why now? But am I the only one who noticed the giant pinky ring in the photograph right behind Donnie and the Crown Prince? I'm not, am I? The guy who goes by MBS up on the wall, giant photograph. I mean, I was wearing a pinky ring yesterday, but you know, I'm not going to ask anybody to kiss it. And the giant pinky ring right there is just wild, absolutely wild. So the Crown Prince and his home fries are promising Donnie a new Trump Tower. Is it in Dubai? I'm not sure if it's in Dubai or a different area, but and I'm really not good with all of that geography and politics of the Middle East, so forgive me. Um, I mean, the people that he met with, I mean, I know some of the countries' names. I don't even know them all. Like, I'm very ignorant about that stuff. Um, Pakistan has just split into two countries, and the the part of Pakistan that's still Pakistan is the part that is sharing a border with India. And then the other part of Pakistan, that I think their new name starts with an H, and their borders are shared with Iran and I think Afghanistan. And they are aligned with India. So they're going to try to eat up the rest of Pakistan. What is this new Pakistani country? I think I just learned about it. And like I said, I'm not good with this stuff. And it looks like my battery is low. And do I have my thing? I don't. Oh no, how am I going to think with my battery out on my phone? How could that be? Oh well. I swear, I keep all of my chargers and everything with me at all times. And then the one time I don't have it, and I keep my phone charged at 100% as much as I can so that crap like this doesn't happen. Anyway, I'm just not meant to use it. That's obvious message from the powers that be. So yeah, the killing, the unaliving of Jamal Khashoggi. I forget what year that was, and I can't look it up on my phone, but that was a long time ago. But that was huge. Not only was he an American journalist, he came from wealth. He didn't even have to work. He was just that devoted to finding the truth. And then the way they did it in an embassy, it's just off the rails. Like, embassies are supposed to be safe spaces. And if it weren't for his fiance waiting in the car for him when he went into that building, it probably would have never been discovered. That could have just pretended that he went missing, right? So I'm wondering if anyone in the audience here, anybody viewing that's listening live, thinks it was odd how the Trumpster fire was holding his little tiny cup of coffee in the meeting yesterday, but he never even pretended to drink it. And I know he doesn't drink coffee, but I'm curious if he was afraid that it was poisoned or something. I tried to look it up on the internet, and of course there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. I didn't even bother reading them, but yeah, there's a lot of chatter about it. I'm curious what you might think, Anna Bees. I don't know the Middle East countries either. Yeah, I was learning just in the last few days about Libya, Lebanon, and um, the one where the army truck drove into the marsh and lost 4 soldiers. That wasn't either one of those. Lithuania. So Lithuania, which is up north, it's European. I know Libya is an African nation. And then Lebanon is right there with all the Middle Eastern countries. But yeah, I'm just very like white bread American when it comes to international studies. That's definitely a place where I could grow and learn a lot, and I'm down for it. I'm interested. It's just, for me, it's hard to, I learn more experientially. That's why I like maps so much too. So I like maps, I like globes, but if I'm traveling, it's really cool to know the history and to know how all these things fit together and work together. What are all these evildoers planning? Well, I think they're all trying to take over the world, really. I mean, I think that's what the big E is trying to do. I think that's what little Donnie's trying to do. I think that's what the Crown Prince is trying to do. I did not see the video about him drinking coffee. So yeah, he never drinks it. And I think it's like, it kind of looked like a little paper cup. Like, you know, it was probably the kind of coffee I really like, Turkish coffee maybe. But he just held on to it. And it was just kind of weird that he held it in his hand for so long. I don't even know how long, maybe an hour or something. I'll look into it. But he never even pretended to drink it. I mean, it was right before he fell asleep. So we can talk about that for a minute too, even though everybody's talking about it, of course. So he dozed off during the ceremony, or whatever you want to call it, the visit, the presentation. He dozed off, Rubio dozed off, and Scott Bessent, I think is how you say his name, the Secretary of the Treasury, that billionaire, also dozed off. But Bessent and Rubio both dozed off when Donnie was talking. I think Donnie dozed off when the Crown Prince was talking. I mean, it was crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And like I said, I know he doesn't drink coffee, but maybe he should have made an exception. I mean, it's just too weird that he's holding a cup of coffee for so long, not drinking it, and then he falls asleep. But yeah, maybe he was hoping that it would like homeopathically come through the cup into his skin and keep him awake. I'm a brown bread American that doesn't know her geography very well. I like that. That's cute. Yeah, I know the geography of our country very well. And I've been to Canada, I've been to Mexico, been to Hawaii. I mean, that's American, obviously, but at least what I'm trying to say is I've been off the continent. So I've been out of our country north and out of our country south, and I've been off the continent to Hawaii twice. Yeah, I think just twice. Maybe almost 3 times. It almost seems like I've been there 3 times, but I think it's only twice. The first time I was there for like 8 days on the Big Island, and the second time I was there, it was 2 weeks. So we spent a week on Oahu and then a week on the Big Island. So maybe that's why it seems like 3 times, because that was a long trip. I love Hawaii. I absolutely love it. I don't like Honolulu, Waikiki, yuck. I mean, that's like where Hawaii 5-0 was filmed, and that's like the tourist trap. But yeah, I haven't had the luxury of checking out Maui or Kauai or any of the other smaller islands. And those two, Maui and Kauai, are supposed to be really where it's at. The Big Island is pretty darn cool too, and it's not very developed, which is nice. It has a great history. But I would have loved to have gone to Maui or Kauai. It's so expensive to get over there, and then you have to spend more money to get to those other islands. But I guess now there's like an airport. You can fly directly to Maui, I think. So it's gotten more popular for that reason. Because, yeah, you used to have to fly to Oahu and then transfer planes to get to any of the islands, including the Big Island. So one of the things that Cassie says in her testimony of yesterday, or I think it was actually today's testimony, because, yeah, I didn't catch a lot of yesterday's. I was going to try to catch recaps of yesterday's, but I did catch a little bit of today's. So she said that she would recover in a hotel room after she would get beaten up by Sean. And they would cover her face when they would kind of sneak her through the lobby. And then she would be required to basically be chained to this hotel room for 7 days or however long until she was presentable and nobody would question who beat her up. I've got too many necklaces on, don't I? I meant to take this one off before I started. So it made me think of Gabby Petito because I've always wondered why, with that case, why more people don't ask questions about why Gabby stayed in the, was it an Express Inn, I think? A Holiday Express, something like that. A Fairfield Inn, one of those. Near the Salt Lake City airport, where she stayed for 6 days, I think, while Brian Laundrie flew back to Florida. I want to say he flew August 16th or 17th, because the domestic violence incident was August 12th, and I think this is 2021 that we're talking about. August 12th was the day in Moab, the infamous day in Moab. And then 2 days later, August 14th, was the day that the two women were shot at their campground, their campsite, their homestead. Crystal Schulte and Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner, the married couple. So that was the 14th. And then it was like the 16th or the 17th that Brian Laundrie douchebag flew from the Salt Lake City airport back to Florida in his explanation to clear out a storage unit to save money, which makes zero sense. The plane ticket would have been very expensive. And he was helping his dad clear out the storage unit to save money. His dad could have done it by himself. I always figured that it was to maybe get rid of a weapon. That's what I thought. And then people tried to say, no, he didn't have a weapon. He would never have a weapon. And I'm like, nobody would drive across the country without a weapon. That'd be stupid. I mean, seriously, that'd be dumb. But then allegedly that's how he allegedly took his life, was with that exact type of bang bang firearm. There we go. Some people say pew pew on YouTube. That's just kind of goofy. I like firearm better. You just try not to say GUN because it's one of those words that'll like trip up your algorithm, I'm sure. And so he couldn't have had a firearm when he was traveling across the country with his super beautiful girlfriend, just two young adults in their little van. But he could have a firearm when he was back at his parents' pretending to off himself, I guess, is the way the official narrative goes. But while he was out of town for about 6 days, I think he came back the 23rd of August. And then the 25th of August, I think, is like the videotape surveillance that you see of them at the Whole Foods, and the stories from the Mary Piglet, and the day that their van was seen in the spot that was maybe 1,000 feet from where her remains were found by the Grand Tetons. That was probably the 25th or the 27th. Anyway, my point, let me get back to the point, is that Gabby stayed in the hotel room by herself for 6 days, from about the 17th to the 23rd, roughly. And it seems that she never left the room. Still, they would have had her on surveillance footage going into the hotel. I've worked in a hotel, and every hotel has surveillance everywhere. That's just commonplace. And we've never seen any footage of her or Brian in that hotel. And I'm thinking that there's a reason, that there's things that they don't want the public to see. So I'm wondering, after the Moab incident, I'm wondering if he beat the tar out of her and then she stayed in a hotel room to recover. We know that she interacted with her dad. I think she spoke with him over the phone, but she also edited her first and only YouTube video that I'll put a link to that in the description here today. The Nomadic Static is the name of the channel, and the video is really good. I didn't realize that she was the one with the drone, all the drone footage. That's all her. Like, she was flying that drone and making that footage. That girl had a lot of ambition and skill and wherewithal. She was going places for sure. And I think she was dumping Brian, and that's why he did what he did. But so yeah, I think that they had gotten in more fights after the domestic violence incident, and I also think that he might have retaliated against Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte. Kylan, as I've gone over this so many times, but just to jog anybody's memory, Kylan Schulte was 6 feet tall. She had dreadlocks, and she was also in her early 20s and very, very pretty, and just a knockout with a great physique. And she worked at the Moonflower Food Co-op where Gabby was working on her website that day, where Brian kept harassing her to try to get her to stop working on her website so they could go out to Delicate Arches. And it was a stressful day, I guess. The whole day he was like, come on, let's go for a hike. And the whole day she's like, come on, I just need to finish this thing. And that's what led up to the domestic violence incident. So not only did Kylan Schulte work at that Moonflower Co-op, she also was working outside that day from the time that they opened, I think 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. I think her shift went until about 2 o'clock. So that would probably be 6 a.m. But she was working the fruit stand or the produce stand outside. And my guess is that Gabby was probably working at a little coffee table at the coffee shop that's right next door. But maybe the co-op had little coffee tables out front. Whichever. I've always figured that there was interacting with Gabby and Kylan, and that Brian probably felt threatened. And, the way abusers are, they don't want their victims to have any, they just want to keep them isolated. They don't want them to have any connections or support networks. So, I think it would have upset him if Gabby was interacting with another young woman her age that's also a van lifer, and they probably had a lot in common and a lot to talk about, and they were probably in each other's presence for 5 or 6 hours that day, most likely. And then I think, from what I've heard, word on the street is that when Kylan got off of work around 2 o'clock, that Crystal came by on her motorcycle to pick her up. And so that would have been a couple hours before the domestic violence situation. And then I think that happened at about 4:30. I think that the call, they were out there by Delicate Arches at about 5 or 6 in the evening. But anyway, my point is that I've always wondered if Gabby was recovering from being beaten in the hotel room. And I know for sure in some of the video footage that I see parts of her face that are red and swollen, her lip red and swollen, her cheek red and swollen. And I'm not talking about the body cam footage with the police. There's that too. But I'm talking about when she's sitting in the tent and she says, "There's Brian doing his morning yoga." And it looks to me like she was a few days from being beaten up, and she was probably excited to be able to make a video that the swelling had gone down enough and that the bruising had gone away, because she was so driven to make those videos and try to get this thing off the ground, to try to make money, to try to support this new lifestyle that she wanted. Anyway, that's just where my mind went when Cassie was talking about how Sean Combs would rent these hotel rooms and force her to stay in them and not talk to anybody and not leave until she was presentable again after he would beat her. Oh, did she FaceTime with both of her parents, Anna Bees? Because I didn't think she did. I've watched like all of the videos about her that I can possibly watch. I didn't think that there was FaceTime that happened. So, but maybe I missed that. I'll have to look into it. I've been in a couple of border towns in Mexico before you needed a passport. And Maui, the Big Island, and Kauai are also beautiful. Oh, lucky you that you've been to all of those. I'm jelly. I think he committed those red rums. That whole thing with that Adam Pazinski or whatever, that whole story about that he worked at the McDonald's that Crystal worked at, but they never worked together, but he hated gay people, and so that was his motive. That was so stupid and weird. Oh, and that he just happened to conveniently be deceased. I mean, he probably had offed himself, and so he was an easy patsy, is my guess. Because I've always said that if Brian was a suspect in those cases, or if he did do it, that would be egg on the face of the Maui police, that they already had enough egg on their face from calling Gabby the perp and then correctly predicting that she would be deceased in a couple of weeks. I mean, freaking nut jobs. Absolutely. And remember, there was like the keys that were found around there, and there was like a rock climbing tag on the key ring. And I think Brian worked at a rock climbing place back there in Florida. I'm pretty sure. I mean, there were just a lot of details when it was all going on. So yeah, that's interesting that you remember Gabby FaceTiming her parents. Do you remember where you picked that up? Because if she FaceTimed them, then that, throws my little theory out the window, which is fine. Again, there's times when I'd like to be wrong, and that would be one of them. I don't want her to be all bruised up like that in a hotel room. Or, okay, maybe I'm wrong about FaceTime. See, it's funny when I fall behind on the comments. Yeah, so I think she talked to her dad, but she might have just been texting with her dad. I'm pretty sure that she only talked to her mom, because if she had talked to them, they probably would have said, let's FaceTime. And also, she didn't have any contact with Rose, which is really weird, because remember, Rose's birthday was August 29th, and the plan was that Rose was going to hook up with them. And so maybe she didn't even want to text with Rose because she didn't want Rose to come and see her face if her face was still showing evidence of getting beaten up. Because, yeah, the 6 days that she was there, I understand being really driven and just working on her video and the editing. And, yeah, that stuff takes a lot of time. But they had that big plan with Rose, and Rose was her bestie. And And then, the fact that she didn't FaceTime with her mom, as far as I know. And I'm pretty sure she didn't FaceTime with her dad, too. Like, I know she was talking to him either through text or talking because he was helping her with the website, with the electronics and all that stuff. And remember, he ordered her a pizza from Domino's. And there was a bunch of theories with that because Rose worked at Domino's. Interesting stuff, the way people just take things and run with it. Kylan probably could have kicked his butt, right, except that he had a gun. And so both of them were wounded on the backside. They both, and trigger warning, big time trigger warning. They both had roughly half a dozen wounds from the weapon in their backs and buttocks. And they were both, I'm pretty sure, completely naked from the waist down. I'm pretty sure that there was no underpants. I know for sure they didn't have pants on. So, that was never really talked about. That was like really brushed over. Just the whole thing, it happened at like 11:30 on a Saturday, and there was a wedding nearby. So everybody at the wedding heard 11 or 12 gunshots. I think it was 11. I think one of them had 6 wounds and the other had 5. But they not only heard all of the sounds, they were also recorded because it was a wedding and people were videotaping. So they knew exactly what time it happened at. And, that's going to help a lot with narrowing things down. And it was like, let's see, August, September, October, November, December. It was 4 months before they announced anything about this Adam Pazinski. And then they just like did this whole presentation about, oh yeah, we solved that case. Oh, and it was right when Dog the Bounty Hunter showed up in Moab. Remember that, Annabes? Dog the Bounty Hunter showed up in Moab to help with the Kylan Crystal case, the Kai Cry, as they would call it. And the minute he showed up, the authorities said, oh, here, let us do our presentation now. We forgot to tell you that we solved that case. Right? Because he also went to Florida to try to help find Brian Laundrie. And there was another case he was working on around the same time. Do you remember what the other case was? So he was there in Florida. I remember he went to some of the campgrounds, like the campground where the family went with Brian when he first showed up with Gabby's van without her. And then they had this camping trip planned. And so they went on that camping trip that was like in St. Pete's. It was like just north of them. And Cassie and her husband and kids went out there to meet up with them, but just for like an afternoon or something. But a lot of people theorize that was when Brian took off from there, that was where they came up with their plan of how to get him out of the country. And I still think he was hiding out in the Appalachians. I remember there were a few sightings. People thought that they saw him in the Appalachians. And I believe that it was him. I remember there was one guy in particular that interacted with him that said he was really spooky. And then, there were the people in Jackson, Wyoming that interacted with him when he was hitchhiking around, probably after he took Gabby's life, and he was trying to like come up with this alibi. And he was telling them like, yeah, my girlfriend's back at the campsite and I've been like wandering around for a couple of days. And both of those women that one of them made a TikTok video about it. And then the other one, I saw an interview with her more recently. I'll see if I can find those and put them in the description. And then there was like the woman who was sitting near them at the Mary Piglet's restaurant and her account. But then, it was like an entire year later before the Whole Foods surveillance video surfaced to the public. And we know that there's more of that that's never going to be shared with the public. And I mean, the hotel is just a no-brainer to have surveillance footage from the hotel. An absolute no-brainer. Let's see. Yeah, there are no coincidences. And the bunny rabbit, they had a pet bunny rabbit out there at their campsite too. It survived, thank goodness, because of that Cindy Sue, who was the one who found Kylan, but she first found the bunny. And she didn't even know where their campground was, but she found it. She was friends with Kylan's dad. Kylan's dad was an artist, and Cindy Sue had an art studio in Moab, and he was one of the artists that she represented. So that was how she decided to go out there and look for them, because he had been putting posts up on Facebook that he was totally worried about them. And everyone was, because they missed work, and they never missed work. There are no coincidences. I saw that too in the video in the tent with the face swollen. Her eyes are both swollen. I think it's very possible that she was there to recover. Yeah. And also the video where she says, Gabby Petito never goes outside. And then he just about backhands her, but he stops himself. I think because he remembers that she's videotaping. That's a big giveaway too, huh? I didn't know that about them being naked on their lower body. I know, isn't that awful? And so, of course, in all of these cases, they always say nobody was ever assaulted that way. Like Kylie, the Idaho 4, even Trinity Backus, even though her pants were pulled down, she wasn't assaulted that way. No, they always say that, and I don't buy it. And if it was him or whoever that did it, if they took off their clothes after the fact just to make it more humiliating, I don't know if they were assaulted or not. I mean, I would think not, because there were two of them and only one attacker, allegedly. I mean, there's no evidence that there was more than one attacker. And so, yeah, I would think that was probably after the fact to just make it more humiliating, and maybe to make it look like they had been, right? Like to try to make it look like that was a motive or something. Well, that's even more interesting. I still think he is a serial offender. I think he posed as a younger person to get in high school, etc. I think he is way closer to his sister's age. That is so wild. Because, yeah, Cassie's like 10 years older than him, or 10 years older than his stated age. That is so wild. I wouldn't be surprised if you're accurate with that. I know you've mentioned that to me before, and it really blew my mind, but I thought, yeah, it's entirely possible. He looks very old. I mean, not just the balding, but he just looks very old. But certainly, like, guys don't usually go bald in their early 20s. Like, of course, it can happen, but it's extremely rare. It's much more common, like in the late 20s, if there's like that early onset. But what else was I going to say about that? About him being a serial offender. There's that whole thing with the book that he was reading, Fight Club. And I think there were other red rums committed in the areas that he was in, other unsolved red rums that, I don't think anyone's ever connected any of that. And I haven't myself either. I haven't really looked into it, just because the whole thing with Gabby is enough, and the whole thing with Kylan and Crystal is enough, and the whole thing with him maybe having gotten away is enough. There's just enough mystery with all of that. But yeah, if there were any others that he was involved in, that would just be freaking nuts. But even if there weren't any others, 3 is enough. I think all it takes is 2 to qualify as a serial unaliver, right? Just more than one. But yeah, let's see. What else? I wanted to clarify in the Epstein case, the early Epstein case, that Alex Acosta messed up and let him off the hook with that stupid sweetheart deal. I had mentioned how at least one, I think maybe 2 at least, of the victims were actually 13, were less younger than 14, because they tried to say all 40 of the victims in that case were 14 to 16. And there were at least 1 or 2 that were younger than 14. 13 that I know of. But I also know that Epstein had victims as young as 11. And so I just wanted to mention that because it's just grosser and grosser and grosser. And then to think that this Donnie boy was hanging out with him all the freaking time. To think that Donnie boy was hanging out with Puffy a lot. There are so many pictures of Donnie chumming it up with Puffy. It's just insane. I mean, all of this was probably in the 90s when they were all hanging out together. Did Donnie go to any of these freak offs? Could he be named? That's, I think, a really good question. And if he did, and if he could be named, that would explain why there's so much chaos. The zone is so overly flooded right now. Like, you just can't possibly keep up with all of this BS, can you? I know I can't, and I try really hard. And I just got to stay focused, you know. I mean, I kind of keep my eyes and ears on the ground for anything and everything, but then I try to stay primarily focused right now, like on the Virginia Giuffre stuff, because I think that he does tie in with that. And I wonder if he ties in with the Diddy stuff too. So to reiterate, I've said it on a couple of my videos that King Charles and Prince Williams had at least one emergency meeting in the day or days right after Virginia's passing. And that Prince Andrew was MIA for a couple of weeks. That makes me more suspicious that they could have had something to do with it. And the amount of chaos and crazy news and Alcatraz and Bitcoin, scam coin, kleptocurrency, we're going to buy Greenland, we're going to take over Canada. I mean, all of that crazy, I think, is just to distract from this other stuff that they don't want anyone to have the ability to focus on, you know? I am 1,000% convinced that Donnie couldn't have possibly known Virginia Giuffre's name. He couldn't possibly have known what happened to her unless he knew her. Why on earth would he know her name? Why on earth would he know that she was deceased, that she had taken her own life? That is so bizarre. And that's the good thing about these lying liars, is that they always tell on themselves because they can't think the whole thing through. He would have benefited himself to play dumb and act like he didn't know who she was or that he didn't know what had happened to her. But yet he plays dumb in a situation like with the army, the 4 soldiers getting lost in Lithuania, being missing persons. Huh? What? I don't know. This is the first time I've ever heard about that. Okay. He would have known about them. So when he pretends that he doesn't know, that makes me think he's covering something up. So I think he's a double agent. I'm just saying it straight up. I think that he's working for Vladdy. I mean, come on. Could it be any more obvious? Could it be any more obvious? And those airplanes. Oh, I found the 4th incident. I found it. So we have December was the friendly fire incident. Yeah. We shot one of our own jets out of the sky in December of this past 2024 over there in the Red Sea. All of this is from the USS Truman in the Red Sea. So then in February, it wasn't fighter jets, but it was maybe ships that collided or something like that. So there was an incident in February, and then we had the incident at the end of April. Was that April 28th? When the airplane fell into the water. Oops. And then 8 days later, it happened again. I think it was May 6th. And here we are just at May 14th. So 8 days later, oops, a second airplane fell into the water. Dang it. Why does that keep happening? And so these are both fighter jets that are worth $60 to $70 million. And then the one that we shut down with our own friendly fire in December, another $60 to $70 million. So let's just say 60 times 3, that would bring that up to 180 million. And then the 2 ships, I don't know the cash value on those, but I've seen the figure go as high as 330 million of all of these accidents. But that's a lot of accidents to happen in a very short span of time, like 5 or 6 months. And December was before the inauguration, but the February, the April, and the May were all with this new administration. But I'm thinking that there's something more sinister going on, that it's not just that they keep losing their equipment. I'm thinking that they might be giving or loaning that equipment out. I would say giving because, they can't get it back. I mean, if they got it back, then it would be obvious that they loaned it out. So. And we know who's in a war and who's losing a war and who won't accept that he's losing a war and who's like besties with Donnie and probably has those damn pee-pee tapes to have as leverage against Donnie. And if he was involved with Little E, the way it appears that he was involved with Little E, then he's all over those tapes, which they're always talking about and not talking about. What about those Epstein files? Oh, what Epstein files? Oh, there's the Epstein files. Where did the Epstein files go? I mean, come on. It's ludicrous. And then it's never mentioned that he might be in the Diddy tapes. So Diddy did the same thing that Epstein did. They both would have these parties and make these tapes because they were perverts and also because they were power hungry and they wanted to have leverage to hold over everyone's heads. JR Nana Boomer, what's up? How are you? Okay. And there have been unsolved red rums in the Appalachian Trail. Were they in that summer of 2021, Anna Bees? Were they in September? I'm curious. I'm very curious. I watch many hiking videos because I can't do it anymore, and I like to watch people doing it. Very cool. But little T just says, I didn't know what those guys are doing. Right. Well, that's what they always say. They're not going to say, well, yeah, I knew what he was doing. And yeah, I didn't approve of it. Because if you knew, that's crimes being committed. So that would make you like an accomplice or an accessory before, during, or after the fact. So yeah, you have to say you didn't know. or you committed a crime. If you knew somebody was assaulting kids, yeah, you got to say you don't know unless you're gonna confess, which yeah, I'd say no one's gonna confess to that, although they should. Yes, the Royals definitely were probably involved. I hadn't thought about that. They were distracting from the Diddy case. And then you had the UK being the first to broker the tariff deal with Donnie, and that gave it away to me too. Like, well, why in the world would he be brokering with them before the places that we really do trade with? Oh, because they were already in meetings in the aftermath and the panic of how to continue to cover up this Dufresne nightmare. And especially with the Diddy stuff, because we know there's photographs of William and Harry at Diddy parties. We know that for fact. I can put some of those on the community post later today. Yeah. Yes, 4 missing soldiers, and the president of the USA doesn't know about it. That's incompetence. Right. He doesn't know about it until a journalist asks him a question, and then he pretends he doesn't know. Just like when a journalist asked him what the drones in New Jersey were before the inauguration, like the end of last year. And he was like, oh, yeah, we should find out what those are. I'll put my people on it. That told me that he was behind those drones in Jersey, because he would have known already. And why would he pretend to not know? And then even when he came up with his answer a couple of weeks later, it was like, oh, research and other things, hashtag other things. Unbelievable. I mean, that's what's so creepy about the gaslighting is these people in these positions of authority know that they can tell you any freaking cockamamie answer to your question, and that you're probably going to buy it hook, line, and sinker because they're in that position of power. And you can't just say, what? Are you freaking crazy? Research and hashtag other things? What are these other things, and what were they researching? And why didn't they just tell people? And why didn't you know? I think there was a lot to it. And I think that they were trying to scare people into thinking that there could be a World War III. I mean, that's been his trump card all along. It's like, oh, you don't have the cards and you're playing with World War III. It's like, he just won't shut up about it. And it's like when you say things enough, you bring it into fruition. Give me a break. Sending love and light. What? There were plane crashes recently. And those are just the military planes, not counting the Black Hawk that crashed into the commercial American Airlines on January 29th by the Reagan International Airport into the Potomac. Not counting the little plane in Florida, 28 miles from Mar-a-Lago, with the family that had the satellite networking cable company there in Boca Raton. Not mentioning the little plane up in New York, Catskills Mountains by the border of Connecticut and Massachusetts, and all of the state parks that had the two neurosurgeons on it, basically, that would and another surgical physician of specializing in reproductivity, basically gynecology, and then then the other fatalities on that same plane, the two that were doing legal work and then the one was finances. So I'm trying to remember the name of that family. I can't remember the name of all these families. I'm amazed I remember what I remember. Rob and Steve and Brooke Stark are the ones in Florida at Boca Raton on that little airplane, the Stark family. And then the Graff family is the one at the Catskills Mountain. And then Catskills Mountains. And then there was the family from Spain on that helicopter that fell into the Hudson River that I think we still don't know anything about. And then we're told it's going to take a year or two for Virginia Giuffre's autopsy. And then there's more crashes too that I am not pulling up right away. But the couple on that terrible flight, the family from Spain, the three little kids and the mom and the dad, and they were both like serious like royalty of like aerospace and IT. So they both, the dad was the CEO of Siemens Industries and the mother was in charge of global communications for Siemens Industries. And Siemens Industries is headquartered in Belgium, Germany, and they compete for all the markets that Big E competes with. And then that Stark family has that company, I think it was called like US Com and Intel or something like that. US Com and Cable. US Com and something. It was like a hyphen. US Com. That company in Boca Raton that had been there for 40 years, that the granddad had started, and then he had just appointed the dad to be the president. That company also was in direct competition with all of these things, that the Big E is gaining all these contracts, all these government contracts, these billion-dollar contracts. So I don't know. I mean, and then he just got this like multi-billion-dollar government contract with Dubai. Big E did. He's got a company called the Boring Company, which is, kind of a cute play on words, but where he's boring holes for their subway system in Dubai. Like, that guy has his hands in everything. And then he's trying to sell us all these freaking robots that don't do what he says they do. His cars don't do what they say they are going to do. He's trying to sell us on freaking Mars, which, I mean, he's just like strung out on drugs. Yeah. Anyway, I should wrap it up. It's been 90 minutes. I've been kind of going off. But, my main thing today that I wanted to say, I've said throughout, and I said at the beginning, and I'll say it in closing, is that the Puff Daddy trials happening right now, I think that's making little T shaking his boots. I think a few weeks ago when Virginia lost her life, he was shaking in his boots. I think he's been shaking in his boots ever since. And I think he's been just setting small fires everywhere all over the freaking planet. I want to reopen Alcatraz. Let's talk about some sharks. And, man, he's obsessed with sharks. And remember that whole thing? I wouldn't want to die of a shark bite. I'd rather die of being electrocuted. If I were in an electric boat that crashed in the water and there were sharks, I would choose being electrocuted over the shark bites. Like, why are you even thinking about this? Like, Mr. President, do you not have anything better to talk about and think about than your imaginary, like, it reminds me of that whole thing, chances of getting killed by your best friend are less than zero, blah, blah, blah. Chances of getting eaten by a shark, chances of getting electrocuted, chances of getting struck by lightning. it's crazy. I think he's nuts. And I think that he's dangerous. And I think that we're all in trouble. And I'd say especially those of us that are willing to speak out about it, but not really. I think that you're in just as much danger if you don't speak out about it. And, you know, if I'm wrong, let's pray that I'm wrong. And then none of us should be in any danger anyway, right? None of us. Because nothing to see over here, folks. It's all fine. It's all good. There's nothing going on. Let's see. I live about 7 to 8 miles from Mar-a-Lago. Oh, do you, J.R. Nana Boomer? So did you hear about that airplane crash with the Stark family? Rob Stark was the 81-year-old dad. I think Steve Stark was the 54-year-old. The 81-year-old is the grandpa. Steve Stark is the 54-year-old dad. And then Brooke Stark was the 17-year-old kid. And it was right after takeoff. And it was literally just down the road from the flagship of their super successful company. And trying to find the information about that company was like nearly impossible. Nearly impossible. I mean, I dug and dug and dug and dug. And I mean, when I try to go back and find it again, it's still really impossible. My son-in-law died February 2nd, 47-year-old heart attack. He was a master carpenter and had been working Billionaire Row for years, Palm Beach, next to Mar-a-Lago. I am so sorry. That sucks. So your daughter's spouse, he must see sharks coming to visit him at Mar-a-Lago. Exactly. I mean, I think it's more symbolic. And I think he's a shark. He's projecting. He's the effing shark. I probably did, but I didn't think much about it. It happens. Did you say it happened in Boca or West Palm? So it happened in Boca, right near the Boca Raton Airport and right along Military Trail Road, which I think goes right to the airport. But I think Military Trail Road is where the plane crashed. And I think that is the same road that the IT company flagship is on. And it's an IT company that is international and that has offices, I think, all over the country. Like they only work with like 5 companies, and they're like the, you know, some of the top companies of the world, like Hewlitt-Packard, CISCO. Those are the only 2 I can remember, I think, off the top of my head. The name of the company, though, is US COM, COMM, and then it's hyphen either cable or networks or something like that. I think it's networks. But they specialize in satellites and cables and information network systems for businesses. That's what the business is. And I just don't think it's a coincidence that that's the plane that went down. And maybe it is. Maybe I'm connecting dots where there's no dots to connect. It's just a whole bunch of coincidences. Like I said, the neurosurgeons in that, what did I say the other family's name is? The one up in the Catskills Mountains. I'm losing it now. I guess I lost it a long time ago. Groff. I think it's the Groff family, Graff. So it was like a mom and a dad and a son and a daughter, young adults, the son and the daughter, and both of their significant others or fiancés. And then they had another daughter that wasn't on that plane, who I think was just graduating high school, like 18 years old. And her name is Annika Graff. It's absolutely devastating. It's insane. But the fact that the dad and the older daughter were both neurosurgeons that specialized in engineering, that makes me think that they're doing that Neuralink type of work, or they would have the ability to. And that's one of Big E's biggest things is the whole Neuralink thing. I mean, his other big things obviously are the robots and Mars and the whole Tesla thing, and then the Boring Company. I mean, Starlink, and he's got his hands in everything, and he should be in jail. Both the Big E and the little T should be in jail, but as long as they are in control, they can avoid that, and that is just so scary. I mean, they're criminals, in my humble conspiracy theory opinion, allegedly. So, on that, I will wrap up and say love and light. Thank you for watching. What else? Have a great day. Eat your veggies, drink your water. And tomorrow, I have a big dentist appointment in the morning, so I don't know that I'll be able to do a video. I will try, even if my face is swollen and I'm having trouble talking, but I don't know if I'll even be able to talk because it's like a crown, and I don't think I've ever even had one of those. Anyway, I'm scared. But they're catching it early. Like, nothing has happened to the tooth. They're afraid that something will happen to the tooth if they don't do it. So so I don't know. I don't know what kind of shape I'll be in. But don't you hate getting Novocaine? I hate it. I hate it when you're trying to eat and drink and it's like dribbling, or you bite the inside of your cheek. But yeah, you got to keep up with that stuff. And like I said, they're trying to stay ahead of it, which I'm very happy to do. Also, they want me to get braces because of this gap that I have. So they want me to get that tooth fixed before I get the braces. So, because the gap keeps getting bigger, and they tell me it's going to cause me more problems if I don't get it taken care of right away. So as soon as I get the tooth fixed, then I'm going to get braces. And I don't know if I'm going to be looking like a teenager or if it's going to be like the Invisalign. I have no idea. I haven't done the consultation yet. But yeah, I know I need them. I don't mind getting them. It's just no fun having the appointments. So signing off, love and light, and see you on the next one. Thanks so much for being here. Loved you. So good to see you. I just had 2 of them and I fell asleep. I have a great dentist. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Peace out.